In this moment, I invite each and every one of you just to allow the great wave of spirit to wash over you, cleansing you of any doubts or insecurities, any regrets or anxiety, just letting them go for now. If you feel so inclined, go ahead and take a nice deep cleansing breath in, breathing in the cool, calming love and light that surrounds you. And as you release the breath, allow your body to just relax in this moment. And allow your mind to be here now. Universal love enfolds me. Universal spirit inspires me. Universal wisdom enlightens me. Universal power encircles me. I am one, and all is well. As we begin this inner healing process, let me invite you to relax in quiet confidence, opening yourself up to the miracle-working higher power. Now symbolize the unity of your thinking and feeling nature by touching your chest with your hand, and let my words act as your own for your own inner healing, acceptance, and receptivity. I acknowledge that there is a power, intelligence, and wisdom greater than my own. I am in the midst of it, and it is in the midst of me, sensitive and responsive to my every thought, word, action, and feeling. I now make this true for myself by saying aloud, I acknowledge. Acknowledging this higher power working through my life, I admit that I am personally responsible for solving my own problems while being guided and assisted by something greater than myself. As I am ready to surrender the conflicts of my ego to the wisdom of this infinite presence, I simply speak these words: I surrender. I surrender. Knowing that forgiveness is the key to unconditional love and the feeling of heaven, I now unconditionally forgive anyone and everyone who has ever injured me in any way, real or imagined. And I now forgive myself for all of my mistaken judgments and their resulting actions. From my deepest level of understanding, I now say, I forgive. Realizing that I continually experience the effects of my own thinking, I now choose to allow this higher power to recreate me deeply, filling my mind with thoughts that are only positive, constructive, loving, and beautiful. I call upon this divine inflow by stating aloud, I choose. I now center upon that one special idea that I'm willing to accept as real for me in this coming week. Visualizing that idea as already acted upon and brought to pass. In seeing my idea become a fact of my experience, I enjoy the happiness and peace of my thought-fulfilled and gratefully speak these words. I accept. Knowing that I have an everlasting place in the midst of the power that sustains all creation, as well as the support of all those around me, I allow myself to relax in the peace of fulfillment and gratitude and say, I release. Now, in my mind's eye, I envision the presence of someone near and dear to me. This can be a friend, a family member, a teacher or mentor, someone who has touched my life in deep and loving ways. Someone who may not be physically present in the room with me this morning. I turn toward that image in my mind's eye and say, I'm grateful for the good in your life. Now I open my eyes, turn to the world around me, and joyfully speak to anyone physically present in this room or virtually on this broadcast, and share in confidence and gratitude in saying, I am grateful for the good in all of your lives.
Last week, Danielle Mercadale spoke. Were you here? I hope you heard this. Would you please? That was phenomenal. Just phenomenal. Now, in the book, the other one, Ernest Holmes at Asilomar, the one we're working out of this, I've got Essential on the brain because I do a lot with that. We have a few, I noticed this morning, we have a few copies left over there, and we can get more for you if you like. And that helps your spiritual center because we buy them at wholesale and mark them up and sell them to you. You buy them on Amazon, that's great too, but there's nothing in it for us. This month, continuing in that book, looking at what Ernest said in those talks in that window of time, which was the last window to close for him. It was at the end of his journey here on Earth in the late 1950s. This month, looking not only at that, but looking at the people he quoted, the people who were his teachers that he referenced in that book, sometimes obliquely and sometimes very briefly. And so we'll do a little deep digging and go see what they had to say that informed him. Bless you. And that we can use today. One of the many, countless number of things that I loved about Daniel's talk was it was practical. It was like, here's something you can do right now. You can look somebody in the eye right now and see them. You can help somebody. You can do something. You can do something. We take it out of the abstract and into the real and into the particular. So we're going to do that today and in the weeks to come as we lead up to the experience of the holidays at the end of the year, Christmas and the turn of the calendar. And we are now in a season of the year called by one constituency Advent. We're in a time of Advent. And Advent is a time of waiting and preparation. Waiting for what? Well, within the Christian domain, it's a reminiscent of waiting for the Messiah as the Jews were doing at that time and have continued to, those who remained in the belief that the Messiah was yet to come, was not in the person of Jesus. There's still a waiting going on. In the Christian world, it has an added dimension that it's waiting for the second coming of the Messiah, the second coming of the Messiah. We in New Thought have our own opinions about this, and I'd be the last person to stand up here and tell you what not to believe about this. Because if you are awaiting a Messiah to come, good for you, and I'll wait with you. And we'll both stand there and we'll wait, but meanwhile we'll prepare, because this is what has to happen for the Messiah to click in. How would we know? Well, metaphorically, esoterically, the Messiah is not a person, you see. It's not a Jesus-like figure who shows up in time, out of time, And you think about that. I think we may have talked about this already a few weeks ago, but if you think about that, if Jesus came walking into the room today, who would believe it? We'd be like, cool costume. Where did you... Dude. You know? And if miracles were performed on the spot, if a healing occurred, we'd say, well, that person couldn't have been all that sick to start with, you know, or they're a shill. The whole thing's set up. And if this person manifested stuff out of thin air, we'd look for smoke and mirror and wires and so on. And if this person announced to the world, love one another, and announced it enough, they'd be in trouble. They'd be in trouble, just as the first fellow was, you know. And it'd be like, what do you mean by that? And what do you want from us? And who are these others that I'm supposed to love? And why don't they make the first move? Why don't they love me first, and then I'll love? So all of this would go on. Who would believe it? We think this person probably be locked up as a psychopath or something just for saying this. As a matter of fact, when I was in college, I took a course whose premise, a psych course, whose premise was that Jesus, this is at a Catholic university, I might mention, that Jesus was or was not Jesus a paranoid schizophrenic, as it was called at the time. And it was, and it was a secular professor. Many of the professors were, you know, of holy orders, but this was a secular guy. And we had wonderful discussions about it that were deeply upsetting to the very Catholic students in the class, which I was not one of. So I could kind of swing at that pitch, and it didn't really bother me. I didn't think he was, but I was willing to entertain the question, and some other people wanted to, you know, claw their way out of the room. But you have to be able to hold these kinds of questions. And I'm getting off the point here, but when we come to the January Basics series, I want everybody here to know it's okay to challenge this teaching. You know, it's okay to say, wait a minute, God is all there is? And some of us hear this a lot. God is all there is. Well, what about this? Or what about them? And it gets brought up as if you had never thought of it, but it's, you know, it's good to challenge. It's good to know. So in the Advent preparation time, I'm reminded of something that happened the other day, which was I saw a whole bunch of squirrels. There were probably, I don't think I'm exaggerating if I say there were like 24 little squirrels, like baby squirrels, not the big fat squirrels that you see, you know, that are well fed. These were scrawny little people, and running, making strange noises. Have you heard squirrel noises? It's kind of a guttural chirp, and running like all get out after each other. Down this way, over that, across the street, across those lawns, up a tree, down a tree, around, having the best time. At one point, one of them stopped and kind of about where Brian's foot is, sort of looked at me. And I said, child, you're doing great. And it looked at me and ran on, you know. And so what are they doing? Well, I don't know a lot about squirrels. I assume they were gathering food against the cold weather that eventually will show up here for the winter. But they were playing. They were playing with a purpose. Why I tell you this is we're playing, but with a purpose in life. We're the absolute having a relative experience of itself for the sheer delight of doing so. Does that make sense? There is the absolute, which is the unparticularized, undivided, unequivocal spirit. What Danielle called last week, looking within four alternatives to the word God, one of those that she hit on, one of the alternatives was the divine nature. Right? So the divine nature, I love that, the divine nature, the way of being. It's not a person, it's not an object or an item, it's a nature, it's a way, it's a Tao of doing things. The divine nature expressing at the level of the relative, having an experience of itself in space and time, is doing so in a playful yet purposeful way. We're here to enjoy life. Richard Bach called us the otter of the universe. You know, of Jonathan Livingston Seagull fame. The otter, what do otters do? They play, but while they play, they swim on their backs. And otters pair up in life, and they hold each other's little paw as they swim. Husband and wife otters do this. And while doing so, they fetch up like mussels and stuff from where their little paws can reach in the shallows and put them on their chests and then find a rock and smash the shells and eat the stuff, the mussels or the clams or whatever happens to be down beneath them. And this is what they do. They also sleep. So that, and right now we're getting a report on otters coming in over the wire. What otters do. Okay. So if you were to study otters and say, well, what grand purpose do they serve in the overall scheme of things? When's the last time an otter invented anything or discovered anything? You know, or went really outside the lines of otterdom? Well, they don't. But in being who they are, they're fulfilling their divine mandate. Go be fully who you are. Which is what Danielle said last week, and I said the week before, and one or another of us says every week here, that the purpose of life is to know more fully who you are and to have a good time doing so. And to do your best to make sure everybody else is having a good time while doing so, without intruding on their choices, stepping on their freedom, but doing the best you can to widen the circle and keep the party going. As they said when Jimmy Buffett passed here recently, he said one of his last words was, keep the party going. If you're if you're a parrot head, you know what that means. It's all of our responsibility to keep the party going, to keep the joy going on. So how do we do this? Well, it's a long conversation to have, and we have it here year in, year out, week in, week out, certainly, and through all our book studies and stuff. But what I bring to you today is the idea of the lost chord, C-H-O-R-D. And I'm giving you Holmes channeling Emma Curtis Hopkins, one of his stable of favorites of spiritual teachers. He said she was perhaps the greatest mystic of our age, and she made it practical. So she speaks in Scientific Christian Mental Practice, which is her main teaching volume. She speaks of the idea of this chord that when rightfully struck within you will resound with the tone of the awakening of all creation. Now, a chord is 3 or more notes or tones struck more or less simultaneously, creating an experience of harmony where before there had only been a single tone, or if you have 2, then it's a tone and its interval, you see. And if you put 2 tones together, if it's a third, it sounds nice. If it's a fifth, it sounds like Gregorian chant, kind of creepy. If it's a seventh, it's waiting to resolve itself into something else. But when you have a chord, you have a minor chord, you have a major chord, and then you have the chord that you like. You have the chord that you like. You know, if Jeffrey were to sit there and he'd play all of the different major chords, major sevenths, and then minors and so on, there'd be some, oh, that's nice, oh, that's nice. And then you'd be like, wait, what? What was that? What was that? Because I feel it a certain way. And different songwriters in different genres, they'll pick different keys to put their music in for just that purpose, because it elicits a certain feeling. Well, where Emma's going with this is there's a chord within the self that, when rightfully struck, will take us from the place of the abstract, ephemeral idea of the oneness of everything to the threshold of seeing it as such. To quote an old friend of mine, Johnny Reed, you go from the door-marked lecture on heaven to the door-marked heaven. You walk through into this. And that which we have expected, that which we've yearned for, suddenly is revealed as being fully present around us and within us, and is revealed as having been there the whole darn time. The whole time, all along, while we were thrashing about. You remember the quote from a couple of weeks from Rumi? Stop swimming so hard and climb in the boat with Noah. See, it's like that. It's been this way all along. Ann and I have been working on an article for this magazine the center's starting to advertise in, and in there we use the pull quote or motto or slogan or whatever we've had around here for the longest time. You know it by heart, I think, that I never knew, you want to say it with me, I never knew there was a place that teaches what I've always believed. It's on our website. It's on the masthead of most of the stuff that we generate out of here. Back in the day when we had letterhead, it was on there. I never knew there was a place that teaches what I always believed. We didn't have an ad agency make that up. Brendan Conroy said that. Brendan Conroy, who was an old-time creator, he passed in 2005. He was an old-time Science of Mind person here with us. He was very involved, and he took Heartfelt Living. He took what was at that time our basic class, and in there, when we went round, as we do in the first night, and we said, so why are you here? Why are you in this class? What do you plan to get out of it? And what brought you really to the center? He summarized it all with that. I never knew. He said, I've been going through my life. He was not a young man at that time. He said, I've been going through my whole life. I never knew there was a place that teaches what I've always believed. He believed it before he heard it. I had a similar experience. I was like, I had the music in me, and this teaching gave it the words. Well, that's all about the teaching, and that's all about this particular path. Let's take it a step further and say the fact that you and I are one with the source, the divine nature of all creation, is not something we have to talk ourselves into. It's not something we make happen or even can expand on. It's the truth of us. All we're doing is clearing away the cobwebs that stand between us and clearly seeing that. What are the cobwebs? Well, again, Danielle listed them out beautifully last week. Our issues, our resentments, our regrets, our stuckness, our low self-image, and occasionally the theological nonsense that we've accepted coming along the way, that there's something sitting out there judging us and all of that. And you know where that came from? I mean, it sounds kind of evil, but it isn't really. It's just, it's sort of, people looked around back in the day and they said, God, what must God be like? We need to have some idea of this. And they saw a king or tribal leader, chieftain, whoever was in charge of things, probably a man. And they looked at that person. They said, well, this person has ultimate control, ultimate authority. All problems ultimately end up on their desk. And they're whimsical because they're human, and sometimes they come in to work inebriated, and sometimes they come in hungover, you know, and so they're gonna have mood swings, and they're gonna be cranky, and other times they're gonna be clingy and needy, just like people are. But they have all this power. That must be what God is like, except with absolutely no restraints. Because it's God. No wonder it scared the hell out of people. But you can see how it was convenient. It was nearby. It's a longer conversation to say to somebody, well, you know, God is the divine nature. It's the essence of all creation. People want, back in antiquity just as now, people want snap answers. They ask yes or no questions. How is it? I got to know. And so that idea got locked in. It was also useful for behavioral management. If you were on God's side, you could launch armies, move people around. Certainly good for disciplining children, keeping them terrified, you know. So it was a very effective kind of model. It was deranged, much of it, but it was effective, and it got stuff done. And now here we are, you and I, in adulthood, and we still are looking over our shoulder. Uh-oh. Oh, what? I mean no disrespect when I say this. Rosalind Carter just passed, and if you were alive, if you were conscious of the political scene at all when her husband was president when he was running for president in 76, running against Gerald Ford, who'd taken over when Nixon was impeached. Well, resigned, actually. Jimmy Carter made a statement that went, what in those days was viral. It was carried by every newspaper in the world. He said he lusted in his heart. They asked him if he'd ever cheated on his wife, and he said, no, but I've lusted in my heart. Oh, God, everybody clutched her. The man lusted. Oh, he lusted in his heart. Everybody lusts in their heart. This man was courageous enough to admit it. You know, he said this. That's what made him such a clear and wonderful character and a wonderful role model for people. Is the fact he's owning it. He's owning his stuff and he's owning his process. It's just a brilliant kind of thing. So, you know, he was not afraid that God was going to see that. He wasn't getting out in front of anything by saying that, hoping that God would, well, good, your first step is to admit it and all of this. No, it was, he said, there are these commandments, there are these teachings that I try to follow, and sometimes I don't follow them real well. And but you know what I do is I get back on the horse. I get back, I pick up the next day. I start over, and I start to have a clear image of this. So this chord that's when rightly struck. What I want to suggest to you is this. Pick 3 things. Danielle had an assignment for us last week about sit in the spirit of gratitude and imagine it emanating out. It gave me a good idea. So pick 3 things. Why 3 things? 3 notes of a chord that when brought into alignment for you will carry you to the next level. If you need some suggestions, here's one. Thought plus feeling equals belief. Thought, feeling, and belief. It's not enough to just think the thing. That's one note. It's not enough to just feel the thing. That's the second note. And belief doesn't arrive until the first 2 have been implemented in some way. So the first thing you do is you think about, you have an idea, a concept of reality that you prefer. A concept of reality that you prefer about yourself, about others, about the world generally. Danielle again said last week, how great would it be if we lived in a world that didn't take hostages? All right, well, you can start with something like that. What's the opposite of not taking hostages? Because if you just don't take hostages, you just kind of flatline. You know, there's like nothing happening. How about gathering people up in your mind to cherish them? Who? The sad, the lonely, the hungry, the poor, the miserable. Your relatives, your friends, people who are doing just fine. You can include them too. This isn't triage, really, you know. So you can bring in the people who are doing just fine in the world, and the people who aren't sure what's going on, if they're all right, if they're not all right, or who are okay today but they're worried about tomorrow. And I was thinking about this, you know, the Thanksgiving table and the holidays. So often we sit there, you know, we bring this up like about, and I know I did and others have too, like about Thanksgiving, the people who are not here anymore, and how sad and poignant it is. And that's absolutely true. And there's another dynamic going on too that's not as kind of not as jarring as that one. It's the fact if you get a room full of people, they're all thinking about what comes next. They're all thinking about the next day and the week after that and what I have to do in June, you know? Because we do that, don't we? We don't only go back to the past. We think, well, where did I park my car? I have to be home by, you know, right? Got to get something in the mail and so there's all of this stuff going on that confuses us. Will carry those people into your knowing as well. So have a thought of how you would prefer things to be for yourself and for others. And again, with others, there's an asterisk here because we don't pick out their reality for them. But how would it be, for instance, if everybody knew they were a choice? How would it be if everybody knew in a blinding flash of the obvious that they are one with the only power there is? Would that not comfort them? Would that not console them? Would that not inspire them? would that not make them better people? Less inclined to take and want to take, less inclined to any sort of meanness or any sort of antisocial behavior. And then the feeling. Well, how would it feel to me to live in such a world? How would it feel to me? How would I feel? Not how would they feel, how would I feel? We don't tell other people how to feel. Just had a conversation about that in the kitchen. But how would I feel if I knew that I lived in a world that really does work for everyone? And then taking those two aspects, thought and feeling, putting them together, draping the feeling around the thought, you wind up in the belief. And the belief is the I am principle here. The belief is that this is so, that this has been so, that this shall continue to be so, that this shall expand and expand and expand, you know. And then now you can say, like the monkeys did back in the day, I'm a believer. I'm a believer. It's not about believing in a particular philosophy or religion. You understand that. I don't have to go over that again. It's not about being a card-carrying member of anything. It's about you believe in belief. You believe in belief. You believe in something, that God is within all things, as all things, that the absolute is having an experience of itself at the level of the relative for the sheer enjoyment of doing that, and to particularize itself in the relative so that others who aren't maybe ready to look full on at the absolute can spot it in the relative and put enough of it together in this chord-like manner to have it add up to the absolute. Does that make sense? So you read a book, you listen to a song, you stand in front of art, and all of a sudden it's like come together for you as yes, there is something. There is something. You see human kindness overflowing between people, and you realize this leads somewhere. This leads to a principle back of creation that says we're all one, and we always have been. Yeah, here's one more three-part thing you can use, three-part chord in mind and heart, and it builds on the first one, and that is to take belief, okay, and from belief move to the second note of intention, and from intention to the third completing note of action. Okay? So I believe in life. I believe we're all one. I believe there's one life. That life is spirit. Life's all the life there is. Divine nature everywhere present, so on and so on. Now, what's my intention? What am I going to do about that? How am I going to live my life in this way? See, this is where the first set of three turns outward. Comes from an inward place, now it turns outward. Looks around the world. Okay? If I have a song to sing, who do I want to sing it to? How do I want to sing it? If I have whatever it is I want to create in the world, why am I doing this? We practice this in a class. We ask people if you had a red sports car, how would it make you feel? We get long lists, usually a couple of dozen answers from the class about how it may, well, it'd be powerful, sexy, it's risky, it's dangerous, it's this, it's James Bond, it's, pardon me, except his weren't red, but, you know, and so then the money question at the end is, are you willing to feel those ways right now without the car? And many people are like, well, no, no, I'm not. I need the car. need the car in order to feel all those ways. Well, that's a tough ask. You might get it. You might luck into it with the understanding that luck is more than we think. But it's not going to deliver you those feelings till you're ready to have them. Simple as that. And you could trade in the sports car for a 150-foot yacht. Okay? You could trade the yacht in for a castle. You could keep trading up. And if you're not willing to have those feelings, you're not willing to have those feelings. So we look at it, we say, so what is it that I'm willing to feel right now? What is it in my belief system? And what am I willing to intend? Intentions, you've heard the road to the bad place is paved with good intentions. That's cute and funny and wrong. It basically means that people have abandoned their intentions, and that happens, just like trees drop leaves. But what is an intention you'd set today to particularize your belief in the world, and then what is the action that you're going to take? And the action can be big, sweeping action. You can create a whole new model of how society could work. Or you could send somebody a thank you note. Or anywhere in between. You could send somebody a thank you note who hasn't done anything for you. You know, just a thinking of you. You can make it easy on yourself. In card stores now, they have cards like that. They have cards for every occasion. You've seen these, haven't you? Somebody's written the whole thing out. They have apology cards that are painful to read, paragraph after paragraph of wrongness, written by AI, so that you don't have to. And for $6.95, you can say, well, this pretty much sums it up, and just initial it at the end, or probably don't even have to do that much, you know? And so the smallest actions, and again, and she's probably real tired of my doing this, but again, to reference Danielle, where one thing makes ripple effect. You have no idea. You have no idea the people that you've affected in some positive way by holding an intention about them discovering themselves like you have you. So the divine chord rightly struck within the self, when it's struck, we feel it, we know it, and our ears perk up. And it's the sound of the bells of heaven, which we'll get into in a later week. So I wish you a happy Advent, a time of preparation, a time of play, a time of waiting, but watchful waiting for the arrival of the Christ idea, which is the transformative. There are no words for it. I call it transformative for you. The experience of seeing yourself as you really are, as Spirit sees you, as the divine nature sees you expressing through you. So let's know together now, there is one life, one power, one presence, pure Spirit, everywhere manifesting, everywhere radiant. This one is in each of us, and I affirm and know now that we do know it. We do know it. There is a place within ourselves that has always believed. That has always believed in belief. Has always had this optimistic turn of mind. That all things are in process. Toward a result that is beneficial. That brings awareness and information and even joy. That around all of this is the full spectrum of human emotion, to all of which we are entitled. And it's good and it's healthy and it's a beautiful thing to be real, to be living in this world full out while fully conscious that in the big picture we're not from here, but from the stars. For this knowing and its manifestation in form everywhere we turn, I am so deeply grateful. I release this word now into the infinite, calling it done. And so it is.
For the first time today. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for being here yet again. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your energy and support. Thank you for your presence. And thank you for any and all monetary donations that you give to the center. It is because of what you give to us that we can be here for you. So we really appreciate all the love and all the support that we receive. And with that, I invite you now to say with me, divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good I give and receive. I am prosperous now, and so it is.
Those are my announcements. I don't know what video or what Danielle picked for the otters because, you know, I got stuck on the otters because I love otters because they're fun. Did you know that they had a favorite rock? Like they actually will pick a favorite rock and they will carry it around in a kind of a pouch of skin to crack those little muscles with. And then they will also juggle that rock. And there are some theories as to why they do it, but why not just go with the idea that it's for play? You know? I mean, they may be strengthening their core or something. I don't know. But, do you have a favorite rock? And I may be asking you if you have a favorite rock, or I may be metaphorically asking you, what is it that you carry around? Yeah? Deep thoughts. What's your favorite rock? So, rock. I do. And so does KT. I'm calling her out because she's online, I know. All right, now I've got the peanut gallery going. But what I'm going to do now is invite you into the consciously sacred. As the song said, it's all holy. And occasionally it's good for us to be rocked back on our heels, to take that real look around and let the scales fall from our eyes and see that it's all God. It's all God. And let it rock us back on our heels and blow our hair back and just for a moment kind of wonder. And then we come back and do what it is that we're doing. So step into that space with me now, to the consciously sacred, and know that there is one life, one power, one presence, one love. That we live that life, that we are that presence, and that we channel that love into this material existence. And in that love, all things are possible. All things are possible. So whatever it is entering into this Advent season that you are waiting for, that you are preparing for, know that it already exists in the mind of God. God is not bound by time and space. That which you watch for, that which you wait for, that which you prepare for, already exists and is on its way to you. And that we stand and keep the high watch with you during this season. That we are wrapped into a community of love. And that we extend that love out beyond our community into the whole world. That the love in our heart touches each and every human heart. And that each and every human heart is opened by that divine love to see something a little bit more. And I am grateful for that little bit more. And I am grateful for a teaching that teaches me who I am and who each and every one of you are. And that teaches me, more importantly, whose we are. We are beloved children of God. And I am grateful to know that. And I am grateful for each and every one of you. I am grateful for our community. I am grateful for our ministers. I am grateful for our practitioners. I am grateful for our musicians. I'm grateful for the technology that lets us broadcast this to all kinds of interesting places. Go back and read our Facebook comments. And I'm just grateful because grateful is another word for love. And so I release my word into law with love, knowing that it is done now. And so it is.
Say with me now, something wonderful is happening.
Something wonderful is happening through
I
me.
feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my microphone.
I feel it in my microphone.
I feel it in everything I am.
I feel it in everything I am.
I choose it. I trust it. I use it. And I love it. And so it is.
So it is.